Hello, pals. I think I'm live. Um, Let me just pop out the chat here so people can ask questions. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. Oh gosh, I'm now seeing many screens of my own face. This is a nightmare. I swear, one of these days I'm going to start a live stream so smoothly. It's gonna happen. I can't wait. I can't wait for that day. All right, let me just make sure I've got all my questions and the chat up so that I can see all the things. Hello, friends. How are you guys? Yes, happy to make this an hour earlier. It's so cool that we have so many patrons from like all over the world and different time zones and all of that jazz. So I'm always happy to mix up the time of the live streams to accommodate that. Yes, I could gush about Jessica for an entire hour. I really, really could. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited. Okay, so first off, let me say hello. It is so good to be talking to you guys. I obviously love having join me for these Q&As, but I also really love just talking to you guys directly for an hour and just gabbing it out. This is going to potentially involve spoilers for the finale and for future stuff. I obviously won't spoil like any plot stuff about future shows or whatever, but if you haven't listened to the finale yet, or you don't want to hear about what's upcoming, you want it to just be like a surprise, then bookmark this and come back to it later. It will always be here. Oh, cool. You're in Israel. That's amazing. That is the other end of the earth. Good. Okay. I'm so glad, Reagan, that you are ready to be spoiled. Yes. So as you guys may have seen on social media yesterday, we recorded our first bonus episode, and the guest star is Jessica Nicole, who you might know from Alice Isn't Dead. She's the lead in that. She's Keisha in Alice Isn't Dead. She is in Welcome to Night Vale. She has been in Fringe, which was like one of my favorite shows as a teenager. So the fact that she now is somebody that I've worked with in a world that I created is so cool. And the episode was written by Julia, and it's amazing. It's very long. It's like a 52-minute episode-ish. I mean, I haven't edited it yet, but that's how long the takes were. So yeah, I'm stoked about it. And I've gotten some more scripts for the other bonus episodes, and I'm just so excited about what we have coming up for you. It's been so fun to watch people play in my sandbox and just like hit it out of the park. So yes, I'm super excited. And thank you guys again so much. I can never say thank you enough for enabling this to happen. You know, we wouldn't be making these 9 bonus episodes without the patrons that we have. It's incredible. We hit our goal at the end of last year of 1,000 patrons, and it's just, I mean, it's grown even more since, and we're just so excited because it means that we get to expand our universe a little bit more. It means that I get to give writers and actors an opportunity to have their voices heard and you know, express their stories through this world that I've built. So it's super exciting. Oh, thank you so much, All Singers Me. I love you too. I just am so overwhelmed by you guys and just so grateful for this family that we've created. It's incredible, and it keeps getting bigger and better, and I love it so much because it isn't, even though it's getting bigger and we're including more people in our world and we're getting more patrons and it's, you know, it's expanding, it still feels like this really close, intimate thing, and I love that. I'm so grateful for that. My shirt is from the Wolverine podcast. I got this at, I want to say South by Southwest. Yes, I got this at South by Southwest. I missed the actual like Wolverine event. And it was a t-shirt that I cut into a tank, because that's what I do with all my free t-shirts. I missed the event because it was on like a Sunday afternoon and I flew in Monday. But I was wandering around like one of the main exhibit halls or whatever, and there were some Stitcher people. I was like, oh, hi, like I also make a podcast. And they were like, do you want a Wolverine shirt? And I said, yes. And I actually just finally listened to it like 2 weeks ago, and it was really good. It was directed by Brendan Baker, who did the sound design for The Message, the Mac Rogers podcast that he did for GE and Panoply. And oh my God, the sound design was just incredible. And the cast was so good and it was so immersive. If you haven't listened yet, it's on Stitcher Premium, but you can do a 30-day free trial. And then it's also going wide to like the general public in the fall, I think. But yeah, it's a good podcast. Reagan, this is off topic, but I am in love with Lauren's kitchen liquor shelf and also her tank top. Oh yeah, my liquor shelf back there. That's a book that my college roommate got me called Gone with the Gin. And it's all these like Hollywood themed cocktails. And I have a lot of kitschy stuff in my own there. Look, there's a Stitcher magnet that I got probably at another event for free. Yeah, I just have a lot of free podcast paraphernalia just in my life all the time. Oh no, I've now lost the chat. Where did it go? Where did you guys go? There you are. June Q&A brought to you by Tanqueray. My whole life brought to you by Tanqueray, really. Haven't listened to it yet, but many people in my fan circles have had nothing but good things to say about The Long Night. Yeah, I'll be honest, like I always have a degree of, I can tell you guys this because you're my pals. I always have a degree of like hesitation, but also like excitement about big studios getting into audio fiction, because there's so many great indie podcasts that you don't want the indie podcast to be drowned out by like the big studios coming in and stomping their feet. But also, if the big studios get involved and create good stuff, it just lifts us all up, right? Like the all boats rise with the rising tide, or however that phrase goes. So I was like a little bit nervous about a Marvel podcast, the idea of that, because Marvel is such a massive monolithic media company that I was like, oh, like I wonder if they will have just sort of like thrown together something to just so that they have a podcast out there. But of course, it's Marvel. Like they don't do anything without thinking through every single step of it. And so they got amazing actors, they got a great writer, they got tons of people from the actual like podcast world to produce it and direct it. And the end result is really good. So I was just so happily relieved and optimistic about the future after listening to it. So I was like, okay, if this is what we can expect from like large studios getting into audio drama, then I am so here for it, because it's going to pull in those fans and they're going to realize how awesome audio drama can be, and they're going to listen to the indie shows. So anyway, that is my stance on that. Yes, puns and alcohol are the best combination. It's true. It's really true. Yeah, I'm glad you agree with me, Arpos, and it's definitely, and Reagan, it's definitely like a tricky thing, you know, in big studios. And I think you've seen this with like YouTube and other, you know, new media things. The Marvel podcast is called The Long Night. It's a Wolverine podcast. It's not really about Wolverine. It's really about like this investigation that is going on in Alaska. There's like a murder, and these two agents have to go up to Alaska in this small town and interview people. And so it's really just like a murder mystery, and then Wolverine's sort of there sometimes. What's so interesting is that it takes place now. I sort of assumed that it was going to be like an older Wolverine story, or that they were going to like place it sort of out of time so it didn't conflict with any of the movie stuff. But I guess Wolverine is one of those characters that like is Marvel, but because he's X-Men, he's sort of like, it's a separate timeline. But yeah, there were like fidget spinners mentioned in the podcast that I was like, oh, this is very much then 2017 or 2018. I hope that's true, but it might require more support from the big studios than they're willing to give support for indies, that is. Yeah, I mean, I think, wow, Jessica Nicole just texted me. This is crazy. Wow, you guys, life is cool. Sorry, I have iMessage on my computer and I just got a little notification. That is awesome. Yeah, the presence of Wolverine is looming over the story as it unfolds. That's a really good way to see it. Otherwise, I don't see that much spillover, at least not as much as I'd like. Yeah, I agree. I think it's, you know, we can't expect big studios to behave like Night Vale, because like in Night Vale, despite being the biggest show in audio drama, is still independently produced, and like they have very independently minded. And so the fact that like Jeffrey and Joseph are so supportive of the indie scene and like really make a concerted effort to lift people up is so incredible, and something I'm so grateful for. Like the fact that they set the precedent that they set for what this community is incredible. But you can't expect things like Marvel to do that. But you know, at least I think Marvel kind of came in, and because it's Stitcher Premium, it's like a little bit different. They're not really in the wide audio drama community, but at least they weren't trying to come in and be like, look, here we are, and now audio drama is ours. Like as far as I can tell, they've sort of been playing the game. So even if they might not actively support indies, hopefully just creating more of an audience for audio drama in general will lead to sort of a trickle down. Not that I believe in like trickle down economics, but hopefully it works for media consumption. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Drop us for Jessica. No one here will judge you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I totally would. No, I wouldn't. I would just invite her over to do a Q&A. No, she's a very, very busy woman. And so I'm very grateful that she made the time on Sunday afternoon to record with us, because it was just so delightful. And she's such a powerful actress. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil the show, but I think you guys are really going to love it. This chat is moving. I haven't even gotten to my spreadsheet of questions. It's fine. If we go over an hour, I'm not worried about it. I think on the whole, we're moving towards the democratization of media, thanks to blogging, ebooks, podcasts, YouTube, etc. So even when big companies get into it, we still have a platform. I completely agree, Reagan. Yeah. Yeah, I think that hopefully things will continue to be sort of meritocracy and that the independent stuff can move up. Because internet marketing is, I think, a mystery to most humans at this point. And so even if there's a big studio that like has a large marketing budget, that might not actually spell success for them. So it's interesting. I feel more in the same boat with like big Hollywood studios and podcasting than I do in any other medium, because it's like we are all have no idea what's going on. We're all like out of, we can't predict what's going to happen next. Hi, Gavin. Hi, love the show. I'm relatively new to your community. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I'm up to date with the show, but not the community, so I was curious what the origin inspiration was for the story. The origin inspiration was, I guess, sort of twofold, both very much from like internal struggles that I was having, the first of which is the fact that like I have an anxiety disorder, and I've been struggling with panic attacks for a long time. And so thinking about a character who had panic attacks that sort of led to something other than just like having a panic attack was very interesting to me, and kind of what that would do and how that would isolate you. And then the other thing that it came from was just a frustration in my own acting career of the fact that I wasn't seeing a lot of roles available to women in their 20s that were like interesting and not just physical descriptions, not just, the girl next door or the love interest or whatever, and really just wanting to write something for myself and for the other women and like amazing actors in my life. And then also I think just a love of like, I love Marvel movies. I love superhero movies. I love sci-fi. And as much as I love those big blow 'em up movies, and those really have a place in media at large and in storytelling at large, and I think they absolutely have value, I always want to dig into like the daily lives of what actually being supernaturally powered would be. And so once I sort of figured out that Sam, who she was and the fact that she was talking to this therapist, it sort of spun out and was a thing of like, oh, well then what are all the other powers that people could have that would actually be pretty difficult to deal with in real life? So it really came from a couple different points in my life and sort of points of interest and struggles that I was having that just sort of combined over the course of, 4 to 6 months of sitting in traffic and just like thinking about this in my spare time, and until it really snapped together and became a more concrete story in my head. Oh, the lights. Yeah. I have some lights strung up because the light in my kitchen, like the bulb, is just out, and it's also a fluorescent light, so I didn't really want to replace the bulb. And so I strung up little fairy lights. I've got them in my bedroom too. That's how I like to light things in my house. Gail, okay, I finally switched my name. I'm not 10 anymore, so I missed a minute. Thank you, Reagan, for saying that you love how nuanced the characters are. That's something that I really wanted to do, was like, because I feel oftentimes with the strong female character, it's like they're just women with masculine traits, which is totally how women can be, right? But it's usually like that's the end of that sentence. It's like, here's a male character we wrote, and then we didn't make him very nuanced because we slapped a female name onto it, and that was the end of our thought process about this character. But then creating women who are morally gray and who make a lot of mistakes and have complex relationships with each other was something that like I think we're seeing more and more of in mainstream media, but that I definitely wanted to dig into. Too long to reign, Lauren is magical, and so are her friends in Hollywood sucks. Yeah, I agree with some of that. My friends are definitely magical. A lot of Hollywood definitely does suck, but there are a lot of hardworking people in Hollywood who are definitely trying to drive the conversation forward, and so I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, you're welcome for answering your question, Gavin. Thank you for the question. I love catching people up on what's going on. The day-to-day of TBS is such a great needed take on superhuman stories. I'm glad you're not forced to meet a publisher mandate to include number of pages of punching per issue. Yeah, or pausing, you're totally right. That's the luxury of audio drama, right? Is that I can just sort of do what I want to do, and really make things very quiet and spend an entire season just on the aftermath of one event and kind of people dealing with their traumas and stuff like that. And some people are going to dig that and some people aren't, but the reality is that I'm still making the story that I want to make. And the people who will want that will find it. And that's what's beautiful about internet art, I think, is that it's not everything has to be everything for everybody. And so people can find the art that really connects to them. And we can have the day-to-day superhuman stories and also all go see Infinity War and see a bunch of people die. Spoiler for Infinity War, a bunch of people die. And, you know, get those big explosions and all that kind of stuff. And both of those things can exist in the world. And, you know, to make a Mad Max Fury Road, you need $200 million because you need to blow things up in the desert. But thankfully for the day-to-day stuff, you don't need that much money. And so I'm not beholden to appeasing advertisers or anything like that, which is really nice. Reagan, you totally should decorate your kitchen with fairy lights. It's so nice. It's a very soft light. Gail, such a male point of view on female empowerment, more like men. Exactly. Oh my God, exactly. And oh man, I just watched Hannah Gadsby's special on Netflix, Nanette. She's a stand-up comedian from Tasmania. Watch it. It has so much good stuff to say about masculinity and femininity and men and women. It's so very funny and very real, and I cried. Go watch that. Another recommendation for you guys. Gavin, is it wrong I don't hate Damien? No, I don't. I mean, you're not alone, certainly. There are a lot of people who don't hate Damien. I don't hate Damien. Damien frustrates me. And he frustrates me because he doesn't make good choices and he doesn't engage with his own mistakes. And I know a lot of people like that. Or rather, I've known a lot of people like that. This chair is very squeaky. Sorry if you guys are hearing the squeak of this chair. But I don't hate him. I hate some of the things that he's done and I hate the way that he's behaved. But I don't think that I've ever written a character who's beyond redemption and it's just about choice. So you're not alone in not hating Damien. Yes, Gail says, now we're all there with you. You are not alone. I love Damien as a character, but I hate him as a person. Yeah, that's fair, Talia. Sarah, Damien is my favorite shithead. Also valid. Key would luck. I get so confused with people thinking strong female character means physically strong, means strong characterization, i.e. nuance 3D. Exactly. That's what it should mean. And yes, also strong buff ladies too. I completely agree, Key. But so often I feel like that trope in media, and there have been some amazing sort of quote unquote strong female characters, but that it often just gets boiled down to like, oh, she's a woman, but she also can punch. And it's like, that can be a character trait, but she needs more than that. She needs to also have opinions and feelings about things and relationships with other people. That isn't just like romantic relationships, although romantic relationships for ladies are also great. I'm a big shipper. Reagan, yes, what I love about TBS is that we have all these different female characters, and none of them are there for the male gaze. They're just living their lives for better or worse. Yes, that is, I thank you for saying that, both of you. Because I definitely, you know, I like ladies. I'm bi. I get the male gaze, you know. But I think also being a woman, it's like, I like ladies, but I also know they're people, which is why I like them. But I feel like there are probably some characters. I mean, you know, Mark in many ways is like very much the love interest. Obviously he's much more complicated than that, but was sort of my intention in initially creating him, is that he's the damsel in distress, right? And then sort of subverting that and making him a real person. But, you know, ideally all of your characters are not there just for anybody's gaze. Ideally they're real people. Okay, she punch, but also sexy. Exactly. Oh, Faye Jing 11 asks, hi Lauren, love the show, and I was wondering when in the timeline do the bonus episodes take place? That is a great question. So this is a complicated question. I'm building out a timeline right now, like the whole show that's a little bit more comprehensive because it had a couple different timelines in a couple different places. Obviously there's the in-universe calendar, which you guys can see on the website. but even the in-universe calendar that I see has like a lot more detail in there of like other sessions, other things that happen. And so I've got a production assistant for this summer who's helping out because she wants to learn how to make a podcast. And so she's been putting together a timeline in a spreadsheet for me, which is so beautiful. And the bonus episodes, I can safely say, I still need to figure out exactly when, because obviously I want to give the writers that I'm working with as much flexibility as possible. But things still have to make sense within the timeline. So all of the bonus episodes take place before Mark gets rescued. That's kind of the timeline that we're working with. Because she got all these patients before, you know, Caleb and Sam and Chloe joined on as clients. So it's sort of all her private practice that we haven't heard before. And so she's still going through all that stuff of like Mark being imprisoned in the bonus episodes. It obviously isn't a focus because it's not like she's telling her clients about it at that point anyway. But yeah, that's kind of the timeline. So that would be like 2013 through 2016, 2014 through 2016 is basically where those take place. Women love women, brain girl punch. Exactly. That is true. Gavin, have you ever thought about collaborating with someone about turning a TBS into a graphic novel? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely occurred. I'm not a visual person. So I've never thought of my story that way. And particularly with writing these novels, you know, I'm sort of digging into the novel side of things, but I love reading graphic novels, and I'm now just getting into comics. Actually, my computer right now is propped up on a massive stack of Captain America comics because I finally asked some friends. I was like, I'm such a huge Captain America stan in the MCU, and I want to actually like read the comics because I haven't yet. So I'm finally getting an education. So I love that medium, and you know, I'm totally open to it. It's never really been something I've actively pursued. Reagan, exactly. Have you seen Alex Marshall Brown's arm? She could punch anything. And she's a complex woman, you know? So there you go. All right, I should probably go into the spreadsheet that has like 20 questions on it and answer some questions because we're already, you know, halfway through this. But definitely still chat in the chat and ask me questions. Can't wait to hear the clues to the main storyline. I'm listening to the bonus eps. Yeah, we're trying to keep those minimal. I want to say, like, there's a couple of little nods here and there to things. If you know are really deeply entrenched in the show, as you guys all are, which I love, you'll kind of you know, there are little winks and nods to different things here. But there's definitely, I want these to be very much standalone. But it's frustrating because it's frustrating in the best way. Because when we were recording yesterday, so we recorded at Evan's studio in Pasadena, which is where we recorded episode 49 and 50. And we recorded there because my apartment's really only good for Wednesday recordings. For whatever reason, I've just like figured out the pattern of my neighborhood and my neighbors and sort of when trash happens and gardening and all this stuff and when it's going to be most quiet. Sundays are not good. And Sunday was the day that we had. So we recorded at Evan's. So he engineered the session. And afterwards, we were like doing some other work stuff. He's like, man, this is kind of frustrating because now I want to hear so much more about this character that Jessica plays. And that's, I've obviously and you know, reading all the scripts and stuff. Most other people like Evan hadn't read the script at all before hearing Jessica and Julia do it. But in reading these scripts, I'm like, oh, I want more about each of these characters. And these were just meant to be standalone, but these characters are so interesting and their powers are so interesting. And like, I love what these writers are doing with them, that it's, yeah, it's exciting because it means that, you know, if we ever wanted to, we could expand that even further. But it's also like a little frustrating because they are just standalone, even though there's so much more to be explored. Ooh, our Poss and Lord, if you read any Captain America comics, please read the old Cap story from the 80s where Cap turns into a werewolf. Thank you. That sounds nuts. So I'm reading the Ed Brubaker. So the two people that I asked for Captain America Rex were my friend Megan Fitzmartin, who you guys I'm sure are familiar with. I feel like I've mentioned her before. She's read some of the writers and script and given me notes as a writer. And she will be doing some stuff for the Bright Sessions in the future that I can't remember if I've mentioned, so I'm not going to mention anything more about it. But I asked her and then Andrew, because Andrew and I both love Captain America. And Andrew gave me the Ed Brubaker like omnibus. It's like 1 through 25. And I'm only like, you know, a little bit into it. But at one point it's like the Red Skull was in the body of a clone of Steve Rogers. And I'm like, oh, I forgot that comics are crazy. Like there's stuff in the MCU that is like wacky and out there, but like comics are crazy. So I'm not surprised he turned into a werewolf at some point. Capwolf sounds crazy. Oh no, wait, why is my computer freezing? Okay, here we go. I want to read some pre-Nazi 2014 Cap comics. Yeah, all of the stuff I'm reading like Death of Captain America, Winter Soldier, Civil War, all of that stuff. I have no interest in Hydra Cap. No, thank you. Goodbye. You can miss me with that. Civil War is good because he's absolutely tragic flared pants. I can't wait. Oh yes, please put that image in the Discord. I cannot wait to see it. Get on that Stucky. Exactly. Stucky forever. I love him so much. It's so tragic. Although I have to say, I like Sharon way more in the comics than I like her in the MCU because she's actually like a character and they actually are building up her and Steve's relationship versus in the movie where it was like, here's a pretty lady, you two should kiss. And it was very awkward. Yes, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is actually like some of the few comics that I've read because it's the day-to-day stuff that I love. I love Hawkeye when he's just like drinking coffee and like owning a building and hanging out with his dog. Like that's A+. Oh, those posters sound amazing, Gail. Yeah, Talia, that kiss was just very, that's exactly the emoji of how that kiss made me feel. All right, now I'm gonna go to the spreadsheet for real. Okay, Tasha Crow asks, your thank you post made me think of this question. How do you feel about fanfic? I was thinking of how fun it would be to write a short story with one of my RPG characters living in your world and visiting Dr. Bright. I feel so great about fanfic. I love fanfic. As you guys know, based on the mention of Stucky, I read a lot of fanfic. I've even written some fanfic, not Stucky fanfic. I've written Nashville fanfic. Don't ask me about it. It's not on the internet, so don't go looking for it because I honestly would have posted it anonymously on the internet, except I definitely tweeted about this ship and then went into the tag on AO3 and there's basically no fix. So if I were to post mine, it would be very clear who wrote them. So the ability to be anonymous in the Nashville fandom for fanfic is non-existent. But yes, I feel great about fanfic. I think it's an amazing way to practice writing and to explore things that are never going to happen in canon, to spend more time with characters. So absolutely take one of your RPG characters, write them visiting Dr. Bright, share it on the Discord and FanWorks, share it on Tumblr, post it on your Twitter, share it with your friends, etc., etc. I just ask that you don't send it to me or anybody who works on the show, not because any of us are weirded out by it, but just because, as you guys know, we are actively working on this story. And like, I have a great fear of like reading a fanfic and being like, oh no, this is what I have planned for this thing. And now it's going to look like I stole this from a fan. So I haven't read any of the Bright Sessions fanfic. I do go into the AO3 tag sometimes just to see how many there are and what ships are being written about. But I probably won't be able to, I'm thinking unless the Bright Sessions universe gets like way, way more expanded and way bigger. Once I'm done with the third book, I'm going to like spend a weekend with a couple bottles of wine and dig into that AO3 tag. And I'm never going to tell you guys about it. But I'm really excited to read what's out there, you know, when I'm 80 and finally done with the Bright Sessions. But for the time being, yeah, I don't allow any of my actors to read it or any of our crew members because I don't want it influencing us in any one way. But definitely share it with each other. I love that. It's amazing. Riley, I think it's a good idea to not read fics. Yeah, I think I have a great fear of y'all reading the fics in general. When are the crew going to be allowed to read TBS fic? Honestly, there are a couple cast members now that could read fic because their runs are over. Like I can say, other than the bonus that we're doing for you guys, and this might disappoint some people, but other than the bonus that we're doing for you guys, for Damien, he's not ever coming back in the series. That's a very deliberate choice. I have a lot of reasons for it. but where we left him in episode 52 is, wait, not 52, 54. Where we left him in episode 54 is the last that we'll hear of him. Obviously, there's going to be a book that explores an earlier part of his life, but in terms of where he goes from now, I'm never going to answer what happens to him. I have my ideas, and Charlie has his ideas. And I mean, I never want to say never about anything, but like that is something I feel pretty strongly about for a lot of different reasons. So, you know, if Charlie wanted to go and read fic at this point, I'd let him, because he's not going to be coming back. And so he's sort of like free from being influenced by that. On the one hand, oh no, on the other hand, fic op. Exactly. You guys continue Damien's story. Yeah. And I'm sure I'm maybe someday I'll sort of reveal what happens to him, but I just have no idea. But for the time being, he's off, maybe redeeming himself and maybe not, and who knows? I mean, I know, and Charlie knows. But yeah, so it's like he would be allowed. Honestly, now that the musical episode's out of the way, and so Evan's not like writing on the show, I would probably let Evan do it. Misha, because they're doing sound design, I feel like it's more influence on the story. But yeah, I think, you know, we all want to make sure that we sort of tie a bow on things before we dive into other people's versions of the show. Because it's like, there are plenty of fics that I've read or things that are fanon in like Harry Potter or, you know, Supernatural or the MCU, where I'm like, have to remind myself like, oh yeah, that's not actually how that character is, or that's not actually what happened, because it's become so entrenched in fandom and it really influences like the way that I approach those canon stories. And so I don't want that to happen with my own story. It's been a very long-winded answer. But our awesome Damien's story continues until he's tragically run over by multiple vehicles, a la Meet Joe Black. Yes, Key, exactly. That's exactly. That's life. Bad people leave and you never know if they get better. That's pretty much entirely my reasoning behind never hearing from him again, is it's not his story. And there were people in your life that you sort of have these big dramatic relationships with and big dramatic confrontations with, and then you never hear from them again. And there even these days with social media, like there are some people in my life that like I've had a significant either like relationship or interaction with, but they're not on social media. It's like, I'll never know what happens to them. And that's just the way that it goes sometimes. Yeah, exactly, Reagan. It's like sometimes it's hard to keep straight what's canon. T. Kaler, oh my God, can you say more about why Damien is not supposed to come back? I mean, I feel like actually Key summed it up pretty well, that bad people leave and you never know if they get better. I just think that that's the way that it goes. And yeah, I think he's a very difficult character and his story doesn't have a neat ending. And yeah, and I don't necessarily want to, just trying to think about how to say that without like kind of giving away what happens to him. I think it's just that like the show's not about him, right? It's like not from his perspective, really. And he sort of had this big effect on the people in the show. And once he leaves their lives, sorry, they're taking out the garbage. It's very loud. I'm very sorry. This is why we don't record on Mondays, for that reason. But yeah, I think that there are just people that, yeah, that you have in your life that have this big effect. And then once you sort of made the decision to be like, they're not going to be a part of my life anymore, you can't open that box again, you know? Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it, I think, for the time being. Kristen Cornell, does your sister read the Bright Sessions fanfic? Not that I know of. She's actually involved in storytelling as well, just in the sense that she reads our scripts and provides, you know, sort of therapist speak and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily want her to, because I wouldn't want it influencing her perception of characters in any way that might change the way that she approaches being an editor. But, and also, like, I don't know that she's a huge fanfic reader to begin with. She reads a ton of books, and so I don't know that she, like, factors fanfic into her reading time. But maybe she will someday. I don't know. We never talked about it, actually. Exactly, the whole let it die at its natural conclusion thing. I think it's a fair ending. The fact that we all love the character doesn't make his story more important. Exactly, Riley. And I think, like, I've said everything that I want to say about this stage of Damien's life in the podcast. And so I think, like, you know, the way to sort of take his story and develop it more. Sorry, they're now wheeling the trash can back. The dumpster. It's very loud. I think, like, you know, the way to make his story interesting in the future and to develop that further and to explore the rest of his life would be a version of his life that he does get better and he does choose to be better. And I don't know that I believe he'll do that. Because he, you know, his episode with Mark, like, that was his opportunity. And it's like, I think if he had a second swing at that, he would play it differently. But I don't know that he'll ever find himself in a relationship with somebody like he did with Mark, that he would find himself in that sort of scenario again, where he would have that second chance. That being said, he is powerless now, so it's possible. But, you know, he's 30, and people who are adults can definitely change, but he would have to want to. So yeah, that's kind of my view on that. Does Damien show up in the TV show? Yeah, I mean, the TV show, as we're developing it right now, is an adaptation of we're focusing on the first 2 seasons right now. So, you know, Damien's definitely a major feature. And it's totally possible that, because I'm thinking of the TV show as like a completely different version of the story, almost as like fanfic of my own story, where it's like, yes, we're adapting the first 2 seasons into 1 season, and, you know, the story is largely the same, but obviously the way you tell it's going to be different because it's different format, it's different medium. But beyond that, it's like, it would be different actors, because some of our actors can't play their characters because of age and stuff like that. And when you get different actors, it's like, it's possible that things completely change, you know? And it's like, you know, the TV show is still in development. I don't have any updates really on it right now. But it's like, I could see something happening where it's like, we get a great actor for Damien and a great actor for Mark, and they're both fantastic in those roles, and that chemistry just no longer exists between them. You know, it's like, that's possible. Or, you know, or it's even more, you know, there's even more chemistry. Because that is definitely one of those relationships that wasn't planned at all. Despite the fact that I knew that Mark was bi and Damien never really thought about sexuality. But just came purely from actor chemistry. And so those are the curveballs that you get thrown when you involve live people and when you involve other writers, which obviously the TV show has and would have. So, you know, it's possible he would become a much bigger character and would get a redemption arc in the TV show. I just have no way of knowing. Reagan, I'm so glad your recording environment is as loud as mine. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare sometimes. But Wednesdays, for whatever reason, are quiet. Kristen, does Sam ever wonder about what could have happened in the intrusion episode if she'd chosen to go back to visit Anthony Partridge again? Yeah, I think she does wonder about him from time to time, you know? And I think maybe she's even tried to get back there, and just can't, you know? And because there are lots of things that places she's tried to go, you know, when she was looking for Mark. I think she tried a lot to try and find Damien and Mark escaping from the AM in that time and follow them and try to put, you know, sort of piece together a trail. And she's not always able to jump, you know, accurately, particularly when there's a lot of emotional weight to it. So I think she has tried to go back, and then just, it's such a weird spot. And I think sometimes maybe she wonders if it even is something that even really happened, or if it was just like a really weird dream. But I think she still thinks about him sometimes. Bring in a grown man. Hello, fellow teens. Exactly. Reagan, Damien never thought of bisexuality. Did I hear that right? No, I said Damien never thought of his sexuality, which I guess is sort of the same. I mean, you know, you will learn more about Damien's romantic and sexual relationships in his book. But yeah, it's not something I don't think he's ever really grappled with, because I think his feelings for Mark were sort of the strongest he's ever had for a person. So, you know, I was certainly open to that happening, but it wasn't something that was planned. And then I got Andrew and Charlie in a room together, and it was like, what's happening here? And just decided to follow it. Damien Arkin never being planned is the most shocking thing you've said so far, and it's also an impressive show of flexibility as a writer. Thank you, Riley. Yeah, it was a surprise to me. I expected them to have a relationship. You know, it's like I knew that they were going to sort of like have this friendship that then gets broken once Mark finds out exactly who Damien is and what he's done, and the fact that he sort of kidnapped Mark. But I never, ever went into that thinking, oh, this is going to be a potentially romantic relationship and it's going to complicate things for Sam. And what was interesting in all of that was realizing sort of halfway through writing season 3 and their relationship, I was like, oh, the reason this is happening is because I've written Damien and Sam to sort of be two different paths of the same person, if that makes sense. Like, they have a lot of similarities and they have a lot of similar personality traits. And Damien is what happens if you turn the selfishness and self-loathing outwards, and Sam is what happens when you turn the selfishness and self-loathing inwards. And so the fact that Mark had feelings for both of them, or has feelings for both of them, or however you want to frame it, ended up not being a surprise, but I wasn't sort of aware of that similarity between Damien and Sam, which I'm sure there's plenty that I could unpack with my therapist about that. I hadn't noticed the similarities between them until it was illuminated by the way that Mark and Damien were interacting. So I think part of it's inherent to Damien as a character and the way that I built him, but then also I think that just so much of it is just the way that Charlie and Andrew act with each other. And it's certainly something that, like, I've talked a lot about with them, and something that I think surprised all of us, and that they were happy to lean into, and I was happy to lean into. And it was just so fun to kind of create that storyline and those character arcs with them, because they're just such talented actors. Hey, you were Tam and Damien were twins separated at birth. You know, it occurred to me. There actually was a conversation that I had with, maybe it was Charlie or Andrew. There was a conversation I had with somebody at some point in like season 2 or season 3 where we're like, are Damien and Sam related? And unfortunately, Damien would have had to have been, either his parents would have had to have, yeah, this was after he reveals kind of what happened with his parents to Mark. So it was too late to do this. We were like, it would be really interesting if they actually were siblings. And like Sam's parents had her after they abandoned Damien, but Damien isn't 13 years older than Sam, so the timing didn't work out, but it crossed my mind. So someone absolutely write it. Because it doesn't work with the narrative of who their parents are. But yeah, adoption, that's very true. But it would, you know, presumably if Damien had a sister who was also part of the abandonment, that like would have come up. So yeah, the timeline and everything and the bio information just didn't quite work out. But it definitely occurred. All right, back to the spreadsheet. I've got a server planning the AU now. Perfect. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to think of like what are some shorter questions that I can. Okay, well, while we're on the topic, Robert Spradlin asks, now that the show's over, can you give us the deets on how the heist was supposed to go before Damien was a part of it? Yeah, so as I've talked about before, Charlie has had probably the biggest effect on story for the Bright Sessions, because he's the one who suggested that Damien be involved in the heist, which then of course led to all of that Mark and Damien stuff, and Damien's arc and Mark's arc and all of that discovery that I was just talking about. So initially, the end of season 2, the heist was supposed to be Sam and Dr. Bright like literally breaking into the AM, and Sam then time traveling when she's in Mark's room, bringing him back to his body, and then them bringing Mark out of the AM. So, you know, much more. And there were versions of it also where it was like just Sam doing that, because obviously Dr. Bright would be recognized. And then when Charlie made that recommendation, I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense, because Damien actually could just walk in there because of his ability. But yeah, initially it was just supposed to be the two of them. And there was also a version of it where like Chloe was a little bit more involved, and it was kind of giving them intel by reading people's minds. And you know, there were even thoughts that I had of like, well, is Frank here too? And sort of like being the muscle for the group. Like, what's, you know, because Frank would definitely feel pretty passionately about a guy being experimented on against his will, given that he was experimented on willingly and it turned so bad. And so that was sort of going to be one half of the season 2 finale. And then the other half was going to be Damien kind of following up on what happens in episode 20 when he's talking to Caleb and Adam, and Caleb having that confrontation with Damien that he has at the end of season 3, and killing him. That was going to be the end of season 2, was that Caleb was going to accidentally murder Damien. That's the only time I've entertained a death on the show, because I thought, gosh, it would be so interesting to make Caleb an accidental murderer. I'm glad I didn't do that, because that would have been a much, much harder thing to pull Caleb back from. And also, like I said, working with Charlie has been so fun. Developing Damien as a character was so fun. I ended up loving him a lot more than I did initially. So I'm glad it didn't happen that way. But that was the initial conception for, yes, it was dark. Thank you for not. Yeah, it's, yes, it was. Yeah, things were initially going to be much, much different. I remember that live stream where Charlie and Andrew, when you said Damien and Sam are the same, both are surprised were golden. Yeah, I don't know that I'd ever framed it that way with them. But that's because that was something that, you know, I sort of discovered along the way. To be honest, I was surprised Joan wasn't playing 2 Damien for purposes from the beginning. That feels very on brand for her. Yeah, I mean, I think she definitely considered it, and sort of thought he's too much of a risk. You know, he's like too much of a rogue factor, and she doesn't trust him. And she was right. You know, kind of bitter in the ass, but it definitely is something she considered. Yeah, exactly. She still left exactly to go. Jesse, I'm so glad that didn't happen for Caleb's sake. Me too. It would have been, you know, it would have been a really interesting thing to explore, but it would have been super dark. And just, you know, like, and yeah, it was, the initial conception for season 3 was much, much darker. So, you know, and then on the flip side, Mark has suffered a lot more because Caleb hasn't, because like, just because then with what happened with Mark, like I ended up breaking him a lot more than I was initially going to. So sorry, Mark, you kind of got the brunt of that. Fully thought Green was on the chopping block, but he got promoted instead. Yeah. To be honest, I'm surprised everyone made it through the season 4 finale. Yeah, that was Agent Green. There certainly was a version of season 4 where like I knew that I wanted everybody to be working together at the end, but there was a version where Agent Green left the AM and then, you know, came and worked with Dr. Bright and Sam. And then I was like, oh, well, it would be more interesting maybe if he got promoted. Because I started to think about like how Wadsworth would play it. And it's like, yes, she would make him the director so that she could get promoted and also keep him quiet, basically. So yes. What was it that the cast was mad vote on in regards to Damien? Was it whether or not to send to the AM? It was. Yeah, and I actually have, I have that right here. It's so this is my script for the Safe House episodes, and it's all color coded based on character, and then we have characters here, and then it's kind of been gone off, but these were all of the votes. Obviously, Charlie did not get a vote because he was unconscious. But I asked everybody to vote whether or not to send him to the AM or to keep him. And the only person who voted to keep him was Andrew, because they voted in character. And I knew that I was going to like take him to the AM, because I knew that most people were going to vote to take him there. But then also that was the more interesting story choice. But what surprised me was that Julia voted to bring him to the AM. I sort of thought that she might side with her brother. And so that gave me like some good stuff to play with in the next season. Where is Sarah working now that Dr. Bright's packed up her office? That's a great question. I don't necessarily have an answer to. No, I think Sarah, Dr. Bright works sometimes with other therapists, like normal therapists, where because she does get people sometimes who come in who like are like, oh, I'm strange and unusual. I have an ability, and it turns out that they don't have an ability, that they have other issues. And so Dr. Bright will refer them to, quote unquote, normal therapists. And so I think Sarah probably went to go work for one of those. Because I think, Sarah's is very, very dedicated to mental health and wants to work in that field. And so she'd want to stay in that. But obviously, I think after a certain point, she was like, I don't necessarily want to come to the AM with you because there's a little bit too much drama happening here. And maybe I want to sort of slow things down a little bit. Yeah, Charlie did not have a vote. And when it was nearly unanimous, yes, Andrew did not vote to take him to the AM. T. Kellier, burning question, will we have more Chloe in the spinoff? I pretty much missed her in the last half season. Was there a reason you didn't want to run those episodes? Oh, I definitely wanted her to run those episodes. But Anna's schedule got kind of crazy. She's focusing more on her art and also school. She's in school right now. She is basically working on like all of her credits so she can transfer into an engineering or physics program. She really wants to go into science. So really it was just a matter of what I always like to talk to my actors at the beginning of each season and sort of say like, okay, like, what would you like to see for your character? How much do you want to be in it? All that kind of stuff. And so oftentimes if a character isn't in the show very much, it's either for plot reasons, like Rose not being in it very much because she was a late addition and also because I'm writing a book about her, or it's a scheduling thing. And so, I didn't want to burden Anna with doing too much stuff when she has so much on her plate already, because at the end of the day, it's like, obviously I love working with Anna as an actor, but she is one of my best friends and I want to make sure that her life is good and that she's doing well. So that was why Chloe wasn't in it very much, just scheduling. And for the same reason, she probably won't appear very much in the spinoff. Anna's schedule's gotten a little less crazy, so it's certainly something we're talking about because we both love working together and she loves being in the show. And obviously, she does all the graphic design for us. She just designed our new Pride shirts and sweatshirts. So it's possible, but it's really going to depend on like how much is on her plate. Because I never want to make the show a chore for any of my actors. Not that it ever is like a mental chore, but I never want them to have to worry for it to create more stress in their lives, so that was the reason. So who knows? Yeah, so Rose probably won't be coming back because like I said, like because of the book, like I've been saving a lot of her stuff for the book because I had the foresight to know I was writing a book about her before really putting her in the show. It's not that she was a plot device because she's a character that I'm thinking a lot about and that I've built out a lot outside of the show because I'm writing a book on her. But like her being introduced in the show was basically so we could do that musical episode. Because otherwise I could have just written a book about her and had her, interact with Agent Green and stuff in the book and sort of have that overlap. But I really wanted her to be in the show and to sing and do all that stuff. So that's why she wasn't in the show all that much. Because it really, at the end of the day, the show is about Dr. Bright and sort of these 4 central characters, and making sure that the focus is about that because that's what this original series was about. Live in Scotland, so is it going to cost me a bomb for shipping? Because I definitely want a Pride shirt. Unfortunately, international shipping is really expensive, and there's just like, I haven't found a good solution to it yet. And I've talked to some other podcasters about how they do their merch, and it's just like, there's no way for us to like be able to pay for the shirt and also like lower the price of international shipping. So I'm really sorry about that. Hopefully someday there will be a solution. But yeah, there's sadly nothing I can do about that. Actual question, will we ever know definitively if Damien's ability loss is due to the head injury or if Ellie did something that took it away? No, it's definitely due to the head injury. Yeah, Ellie didn't have anything to do with it because I think Ellie would have loved to have extracted his power for her own gain. And I'm sure she tried when he was in the AM, but there wasn't, you know, it wasn't manifesting enough for her to figure out how to do that. But yeah, it definitely was Caleb who did that. So she's sort of a character from the books that makes a cameo in the show before the book comes out. Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Because yeah, I've been saving up a lot of her plot for the book. So hopefully we'll see how that pans out. And that's in 2021. So sorry, a bit of a wait on that. Okay, back to the spreadsheets. Okay, yes, here's another kind of like, will we ever find out definitively question from Melissa Albers. My friends and I have been debating this since the last episode came out. Did Mark and Sam officially break up? Also, I just want to thank you again for all of your work on this. I hope you all know how amazing the art you put out in the world is and how many people were inspired and touched by it. Thank you so much, Melissa. I really, really appreciate that. That means a lot. As for your question, yes, they did officially break up. I think it was one of those things where they were like, we're not going to try to do the long distance thing because we've already done the long distance thing through time and space. And that really sucked. So let's not do that again. And I think I sort of, you know, thought, okay, we're going to step back from this. We're each going to do our own things, kind of get our lives in order, because neither of them are necessarily in a place to like jump into another relationship. So I think they're kind of like, we're going to get our lives in order. Once you come back from your tour, maybe we'll reevaluate and see where we're at. But also, like, if either one of them were to meet somebody in that time, which, you know, could happen. Again, I don't think either of them are in a place to be in any kind of relationship right now. Then for all intents and purposes, yeah, they are broken up. As to what happens to them in the future, stay tuned for 2019 when we jump back into that story. Oh, wow, whoa, what is that emoji, Talia? That's such a, I've not seen that one before. I love it. Gavin, will we get to meet Caleb's family? Yes. So they appear in the book, in the first book, a lot more, obviously, than they do in the podcast. And also, yeah, I'll tell you guys this. Alice does appear in future stuff. I've been wanting to build her out as a character for a really, really long time. And there are a bunch of reasons why I didn't include her in the original run. Again, like, it's sort of the same reason with like Rose not being a major character. At the end of the day, this is about this specific group of people and focusing on them. And particularly in podcasts, it's like, I don't think you ever want your cast to get too big. And then also, she was very, very young. And working with people under 18 involves a lot more red tape, as it should. And I wanted to wait sort of until she was an age where I could like hire like a 19 or 20-year-old to play like a 14 or 15-year-old rather than having a 20-year-old playing somebody who's 13 or actually hiring somebody who's like 16. So that was sort of like the practical reason for it. And also I like wanted to like dedicate some time to her. So she'll be appearing in a spinoff, definitely the second one, maybe the first one. I don't want to make any promises because I'm still building out the character list for that. And again, I don't want it to get too bloated, but it's a possibility. So stay tuned. Alice's Princess Powerful. Yes. Oh, I haven't watched Runaways yet. But yeah, I like Princess Powerful as a name. Okay, we are at an hour. And I totally forgot that I actually have a phone call in like 15 minutes. But I'll answer a couple more questions, kind of do a rapid fire thing. And then I'll, of course, get to these questions in another Q&A if I don't get to them right now. Oh, Darwin. Yeah, Darwin was sad about Mark leaving. But, you know, I think Sam's been cuddling him extra hard. What kind of cat is Darwin? I don't know anything about cats, so I'm allergic to cats. There have been some good headcanons. There's a picture I think if you Google cat with a bow tie, I'll post it in the Discord if I can find it. There's one picture of a cat in a bow tie that is my headcanon for Darwin, so I'll share that later. But let me, okay, this is a big question from Riley, who I know is here, and so I want to answer it because it's a really important question. Even if it's a little bit, it's a big question. But okay, so this is from Riley. If you can tell us, can we expect to see more of Rose, Damien, and maybe even Emily in upcoming mini episodes and future projects? I think I answered some of that already. Definitely no Damien, except for the bonus, which is his first session. So it's like Damien in the past. Rose and Emily will obviously be in the book. Probably not going to be voice characters in future stuff. But here's your main question. Additionally, and I know this may be touchy ground, I recently read your post in response to someone asking about the lack of gender and racial representation. It was brilliantly worded, and I appreciated hearing your thoughts on the topic. With so many new projects coming up, how have your thoughts on this topic evolved, and have you made any strides forward in this respect? I struggle with a similar issue, and I truly value your views given how you have handled it in the past. Finally, what non-TBS things are happening in your life? I know there's so much going on, but what are you enjoying outside of work? Okay, first thing first. Thank you so much for saying that you appreciated my thoughts on this. I'm really, it's an important question and what I'm constantly thinking about. And so I'm really happy when people are, you know, glad to meet me kind of where I'm at and talk to me about it. So thank you so much for that. And secondly, I love how many of you asked if I have things going on other than TBS in my life. I love that you're concerned about my mental health and my well-being. It's honestly like really, really beautiful. And yeah, I do have some stuff going on in my life. That's separate from TBS, not a lot, but I'm working on another project right now that I can't talk about, which somebody else asked, you know, if I'm just swallowed in NDAs. Yeah, Troy asked. And I'll hopefully be able to talk about that soon. But that's been really fun. And then this summer, I actually I'm going to a family reunion and having a vacation, and that's going to be really great. Also, I'm seeing Janelle Monáe on Thursday, which I'm so stoked about. So yes, for all of you wondering if I am taking time for myself, I am. Thank you so much for being concerned. But to your main question, I think my thoughts on this topic are always evolving. And this is something that I spend a lot of time talking about with collaborators on various projects and with my cast members. I'm trying to think about, yeah, you guys, you know what? I trust you. I love sharing stuff with you and sharing my thought processes on these things, these sort of difficult questions that I'm encountering. So just keep this, you know, amongst ourselves. But the Caleb Adam book does define to a degree what those characters look like. And in talking to my actors about, you know, any potential audiobook stuff, because obviously, you know, any audiobooks for the books is not my decision alone. It's publisher, it's what's capable to do with audiobook. If we even do an audiobook, there's lots of imponderables that I don't know about or can't anticipate because I'm brand new to this publishing biz. But it's certainly something that, given that the source material is a podcast, that's come up. And, you know, I would love my voice actors to read the audiobooks. And especially, you know, the Caleb Adam book is dual perspective. And so I want at least, you know, I want two narrators to narrate each part. It's first person perspective. Thank you guys for saying that. You got me. I really appreciate that. But the quandary that I'm having, and I was just talking to Brigham about this the other night and kind of talking through my own mental anxiety over this, is that, you know, I hadn't made an executive decision about sort of the race and appearance of Caleb and Adam when I started the show. I had some vague ideas. And then I also wasn't sure, when I cast Alex as Adam, I was just he's going to be in this one episode, just hear his voice, but this is staying in this therapy format. And so I didn't necessarily have a big, long thought process about who to cast, other than are they a good actor? Do they have a good voice? Do they get along with Brigham? Because I was they're going to be in, you know, 1 or 2 episodes. And then of course, Alex came on board as Adam and blew me away with his performance and his chemistry with Brigham. And the format of our show was able to get more flexible because Misha came on board, and sort of all these things happened at once in very, very close succession, that he ended up becoming a much, much bigger character in the podcast than I anticipated him being. Despite the fact that maybe I had an idea about the race of that character. I always knew he was half Jewish, and in my mind, he was mixed race. And I had been writing him as such in the book. And so now I'm kind of in this weird spot where it's like, moving forward, I absolutely want to make sure that I'm casting, if a character has a, specific race, I want to make sure that I'm casting an actor of that race, even if you don't see them, right? Like that's an important thing to do. But with an audiobook, so I'd want somebody who had that experience and was of that group. But that would mean getting a different actor to play Adam. And so that's one of those tricky things. And I keep thinking about this interview I read with the creator of BoJack Horseman, who cast Alison Brie in BoJack Horseman as an Asian character, and it's animated. So it's like, she is just voicing a character who is Asian. But he said, he's like, if I sort of had the ideas about it, the thoughts that I had about this issue now, like I would never have cast Alison Brie, even though she's amazing. I would have cast an Asian American woman. And so I'm kind of in that spot. And there are a couple things like that. And, certainly with any TV show stuff, if we get to the point of casting, having to nail down races for these characters, and what that will mean for actors who maybe could have played their roles otherwise, but maybe can't now, and sort of, wanting to do right by the voice actors that have given their heart and soul into this show, but then also wanting to do right by representation and by being honest and upfront in that moving forward. So that's kind of like, I don't have an answer for that. And this is what I was sort of expressing to Brigham. I was like, I want it to be, if we do an audiobook, I would want Brigham to be Caleb, and I, all things being equal across the board, would want, like a mixed race gay dude to voice Adam. And Alex is not that. But I love Alex's performance as Adam, and he's for sure going to be in the second spinoff, because that would be crazy to recast, just because of the book. So it's complicated. And so I think, moving forward, like kind of as I'm thinking about future projects and, spinoffs and all this stuff and projects outside of the Bright Sessions, I'm trying to really nail those things down from the beginning, even if we never actually make it canon in the show, just knowing and sticking to that. Because I really love seeing all the different interpretations of podcast characters and how they can be so many different types of races and looks and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to lose that, but just having the internal knowledge of what I'm doing and making sure that I'm being more thoughtful about these things moving forward is definitely an effort of mine. That was a lot of just my own thought process to spill out on you guys, but I hope that answers your question, Riley, and that it provides a little insight into sort of where I'm at with this topic, because I definitely want to always be an advocate for better representation and expand. And that's part of why I am hiring so many different writers for the bonus episodes, because I want to expand the perspectives that are being shared in my world. But then, you come up against things like this, where it's like, even though Julia and Andrew are both the right age to play Dr. Bright and Mark in any visual format, they could not be biological siblings in real life. And so, it's like things like that I've sort of painted myself into a little bit of a corner on, and it's just a difficult thing. So I'd love to sort of hear what you guys think about this. Reagan, yeah, it's such a complicated situation. I'm in the same boat as indie creators, especially. I think we're limited to who will actually agree to work for us. Exactly. I mean, in the beginning, when I cast everyone with the exception of Frank, Rose, Wadsworth, yeah, that's it. Those are the only 3 characters that were cast after we were able to start paying everybody. So in the beginning, I was just casting people that like were good, and people in my life that I knew who were good and were willing to do something for free. And then you have what you have, and that's, yeah, that's just, it's one of the things of being an indie creator. And of course now I have money to pay actors. And so I'm trying to, like the first thing I wanted to do when I finally had money was make Frank, who canonically from the beginning was Black, a character. And, in looking around to who could play Wadsworth, seeing Alex and being like, this is, an amazing person, and I want to pay her for her amazing work. So making those efforts once you actually have the money, but certainly in the beginning, it was a little bit more haphazard. Not to say that I regret any of my casting choices. As you guys know, so many of the characters were written for actors, but it's just actors I was encountering in my life who weren't huge yet and who could do things for free and you know, kind of come over and hang out and be part of this like little indie experiment. Riley, I think that's such a good position to take. The whole, I would do it differently if I thought what I would do back then, but I can't go back, so I just have to do differently going forward. Yeah, exactly. It's like I can do the best that I can moving forward, and that might mean, you know, maybe the best way is to have like a bunch of different actors approach these characters in a bunch of different formats. You know, that could be really interesting. And obviously there are different things like, you know, I think specifically, I love seeing all the different interpretations of Caleb as, you know, tons of different races. And his race isn't necessarily super defined in the book, but to me, it's like, the book is in part dedicated to Briggan because like, I've said this before, Caleb feels like a child that we've raised together, and it would be very weird. And obviously if there's a TV show, like somebody else would be playing Caleb because Briggan's a 30-year-old man and he can't play a 16-year-old on TV, though he is very young and handsome. But, you know, when I have the opportunity, it's like, that's like Briggan is, you know, it would be weird to me to have Briggan, to have somebody else read that role. But certainly for other things, when races are defined in my head, you know, kind of moving forward and being a little bit more considerate about those things. Reagan, is it important that Joan and Mark are biological siblings? I've thought about this. They don't need to be, specifically because, you know, Dr. Bright isn't atypical and Mark is. He could easily be adopted. But that's also part of why I want them to be biological siblings, because I think it's interesting if, you know, they're all sort of part of this biological line and Mark is the outlier in this way. And it's like, you know, Joan, for all intents and purposes, sharing the same DNA could be atypical, but isn't. And the tension that that creates between them and the tension that that created with their parents. And the fact that, you know, Mark was born into this family who rejected him, I think is something that like isn't necessary for them to be biological, but it's certainly an interesting facet of them being biological siblings, if that makes sense. Thanks for asking the question, Riley. I'm glad that you liked hearing my thoughts. Kia, the fact that you've thought about this so much shows that you care hugely about representation and doing right by marginalized people. Is a tough situation, though. It is. It's a really tough situation. Yeah, Spider-Man did the adult as a teen thing a couple times, and I think it's really only worked effectively with Tom Holland, who is like, what, 21. It is hard, and I think I think I've sort of made peace with the fact that, like, despite what internet culture will tell you, you are going to fuck up. and if anybody is trying to hold you to a standard of like, oh, if you make a single mistake with representation, you're dead to me. I think that that's a really toxic thing that I see online a lot, because you can be the wokest person in the world, and trust me, a week from now, you will not be the wokest person in the world anymore, because there's going to be some new thing that we're being educated on. And so from my perspective, it's like the best I can do is have these conversations and express these thoughts out loud and talk to people about my thought process, just so that I can get honest responses. And they're difficult conversations. They can be uncomfortable conversations. And those are usually the most important conversations to have. So I'm so grateful for the willingness of our fan base to have those conversations with me and to call me out on stuff in a kind, constructive way, and to help me navigate this, because, you know, I've lived as a white person my whole life. And, you know, despite being a queer woman, like I grew up in a great deal of privilege. And so there are things that I'm going to have blind spots about, and all I can do is like try to educate myself. And so I appreciate people being patient with me. And if I'm ever at a point where I'm burying my head in the sand and not educating myself, then you absolutely can, you know, say that I'm dead to you, and we can go our separate ways, but hopefully that will never happen. Yeah, I agree. It's a neat touch. I was just curious for TV purposes. Yeah, who knows? I have no, you can retcon Mark's adoption 30 years from now. What a twist. Exactly. Make a comic book and you can retcon anything. Exactly. It's funny, in reading Captain America, I was like, who's this guy with an eye patch? This is like, who is this dude? And then of course it was Nick Fury. And I was like, Nick Fury's white in the comics? Like, what is happening? Because to me, Nick Fury is Samuel L. Jackson, and that's it. I just assumed he was always a black man. So, you know, I think with a world that exists in a lot of different mediums, you can take a lot of different, you know, perspectives in the same characters and in the same world, which is really cool. I agree, mistakes happen. You just have to be willing to learn and evolve. I'll stand beside you on that because that's how it has to work. I agree. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ryan. I appreciate you guys being with me on this and sort of helping me out, you know, and having these conversations because they are important conversations to have. So on that note, maybe I'll answer just like a fun like question to wrap things up. If anybody has a fun like question, yeah, everyone is wearing eye patches, not for any reason. Just that's you know, it's just a fashion choice in the world of TBS. It's part of the universe that's never come up before, but that's absolutely true. Lauren, thank you as always for doing these Q&As and for the show and for the Discord and community that's built around this wonderful thing you shared and created. Thank you so much, Arpasan. It's just, this is so much fun to talk to you guys and to just have this community. It means so much to me. I spend a lot of my day thinking about you guys. Oh, I am not going to tell you what the tattoos are not because I don't have opinions about them, but because I haven't actually had the discussion with either Julia or Andrew about the tattoos yet. And that's definitely going to have to be a group decision because they'll naturally have opinions. So yeah, Dumbledore had an eye patch this whole time. It really would be a JKR thing to do, to be like, oh, by the way, everybody actually is an alien. This doesn't take place on planet Earth. Everybody's been rollerblading the entire time. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Sorry, I just have a million notifications coming in because I'm late for this thing. But thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting us and for just being such a wonderful community of people. I'm so glad that we have a Discord now because I love talking and hanging out with you guys. We'll do another one of these soon. There will certainly be one in July, probably with Julia, if I can wrangle her, so that she can talk about her episode. That'll be after July 16th, obviously, so that you guys can hear the episode. So thank you so much, you guys. I love you a lot, and we will talk soon. But in the meantime, have a great week and a great June, and a happy 4th if you're in America and celebrating such a thing. And I'll see you guys in July. Bye.